Anybody else before Tara gives her testimony? I just want to say, I read this morning that, have you ever heard of a place called Sao Tome and Principe? Yeah. An island off Africa. Apparently, I just read this morning that they're making an agreement with the church, with our church, like to let, and they, what do you call it, a memorandum of understanding with our church, this nation of Sao Tome and Principe, very good. I thought it meant principle, but it means it's just off the, I googled it, it's just off the left coast of Africa. It's on the equator, it's near Gabon. Gabon, it's just off the, it's an island.
I know, it's okay.
It's an island.
So it's a nation as well, is it?
It's a nation, yeah.
Okay.
And it's Christian. It was Portuguese, and they became independent from Portugal. So it's a Christian nation, and I don't know what's going on at the back there. It's confused. So anyway, so it looks interesting. Memorandum of understanding, and they're going to bless 100,000 or something.
Oh my God.
I mean, this is, you know, like things might change, but.
Do they speak Portuguese?
I guess, yeah, I think they speak Portuguese and a native language. The probably Catholic, I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to open the Chambumo Gyeong and just see what happens. And try and find something. True Parents' Course of Suffering and Victory. Shall I read the red bits or just the actual? Okay. Imprisonment for underground activities. From April 1941 to September 1943, True Father studied in Japan. During this period, he involved himself in the underground independence movement. He had the conviction that a person who does not love his country cannot love heaven. True Father returned to Korea in mid-October 1943. The following year, True Father's independence movement activity in Japan was exposed, and in October 1944, he was arrested and confined at the Gyeonggi Province Police Station. There he underwent 2 months of interrogation and torture. And this is Father's words. I was involved in underground activities during the Japanese occupation. During that time, I determined what path I would take. While studying in Japan, I met wealthy people and encountered temptations of all kinds. I was good at many things. So even though people really did not know who I was, they always sought me out. When I was with them, they were so comfortable with me that almost without realizing it, they would share their deepest secrets of their hearts. While studying in Japan, I worked in the underground movement directed by the provisional government in Shanghai. Recently, my name was discovered in the records of the Japanese Metropolitan Police Headquarters, and I obtained a copy of those records from Japan. The record at the Metropolitan Police Headquarters states that I was part of the independence movement traveling between Korea and 2 other nations. Now I have the evidence of my involvement that no one can deny. When it was time for me to return to Korea from Japan after finishing my studies, I prayed, Japan, I will see you again in 21 years. In fact, I did return to Japan 21 years later. While in Japan, I was involved with underground activities, working jointly with communists to carry out operations to liberate Korea. I carried out all kinds of covert activities, and police detectives were always following me, working jointly with communists. When I left for Korea, they notified the Japanese authorities in Korea that I was on my way to somewhere in Korea. When I arrived at the station, some people came up to me and said, there you are, giving me the feeling that I was being watched. There were many such incidents. I was typical of those who carried on underground activities in Japan. I know Japan better than anyone else. Living near the Nijubashi Bridge, whenever I saw the royal palace, it made me so angry to think of what the emperor was doing to my country. I studied all about Japan, beginning in the slums. I researched all aspects of Japanese life. Once I worked as a secretary doing paperwork in the office of a government official. At that time, I saw that the Japanese occupation would not last much longer. I engaged in underground activities as a student, but I never spoke about it, so no one knew about them. I traveled on the Bokwan ferry from Busan to Shimonoseki to manage secret negotiations for independence. I also traveled to the Hikari line between Busan in southern Korea, Sinuiji in northern Korea, and Dandong in China to connect various people behind the underground movement and serve as a liaison between their operatives. I experienced prison life during the period when the Korean people were suffering under 40 years of Japan rule. I was incarcerated. I went to prison for the sake of liberating Korean people. The Japanese tempted me with all kinds of sweet words, saying, if you cooperate with us, we will make you successful, or you will be well taken care of. But I chose a path of suffering. God was so displeased with Japan that he would not let me take any interest in that country. God drove me into prison as a strategy to sever me from any kind of relationship with Japan. When I look back now, that's how I see it. All those who supported the Japanese regime from the top to the bottom opposed me and pushed others to oppose me. Thus, God wanted me to take a path of suffering. Colin, you can read what you want.
6. Our unification family began in order to pioneer the path to become those who can take responsibility on behalf of God and be recognized by Satan by making a connection to God's heart. This path is something that no one knows. Behind it are tragedies too numerous to count. During the time of Japanese rule, I was in and out of prison. Even when vomiting blood, and even when they pulled out my fingernails and blood drained from my 10 fingers, I affirmed in prayer, it is an honor to offer this blood as a sacrificial offering, to represent the blood of 10 tribes and the blood of 10 nations. More than receiving my own salvation, I thought about how good it would be if my one death could free the whole country from its resentment and liberate it. 7. The universal and supreme hope of humanity is to find their original parents. It is to find the original world, the hometown that the original nature desires. This is the original goal that all people seek to achieve, whether in the past, the present, or the future. If a nation cannot obtain it, true happiness will not dwell there. This is heaven's fundamental law, for the sake of which I abandoned everything. For that hope I gave up all attachments, even to my parents. I was in prison during the period of the Japanese occupation, but I was grateful that I could go to prison rather than betray my country. Since I was pursuing the sovereignty of heaven's nation, I would not bend to the sovereignty of the Emperor of Japan. This was unforgivable to the followers of the Emperor and to those under his sovereignty. Yet I did not pursue worldly things. I spurned those pro-Japanese people who offered me a successful and comfortable life. Instead, I left my parents and my family behind and took the path to recover my country's independence. 8. When I was a young man in my 20s, my head was filled with dreams. Others thought them to be fantasies, and they ridiculed and mocked me. My mother said, "My goodness, I made such a huge effort to send you to study, and yet you have come to this?" I had the reputation of being very smart, so although I was born as a second son, the Moon clan had great expectations for me. My mother invested all her efforts to support me. She did not have much money. Still, she scraped together enough money to send me to study abroad. Yet, when I came home, I ended up being taken off to prison. When I thought of my mother shedding tears as she visited me in the prison run by the Japanese authorities, I wished I did not have to do what I was doing for my country. Nonetheless, I had to do it. It was my destiny. Knowing my situation, my mother could not say anything against me. I said to her, "As your son, I have done nothing wrong. As a son of the Moon clan, I have done nothing to taint the family name. Even from the standpoint of the traditional perspective of Korea, my conscience is clean. While I am here in prison, I do not want you to be the kind of mother who sheds tears over my hardships. I need you to be the kind of mother who will encourage and strengthen me. I need you to be the kind of mother who will advise and encourage me to be bold and courageous for the sake of the future as I pioneer the road that can lead Asia and liberate the Korean people. That is how I want to see you. I would rather not see you just weeping for me. After all, I consider myself to be God's son. 9. By the work of my own hands, I bought horses and clothes for numerous people, but I did not buy even one handkerchief for my parents. Indeed, I was not a filial son, but it was not for selfish reasons. During the time of Japanese rule after I came back from Japan and was taken to prison, my mother visited me and shed tears. Like a thunderbolt from a clear sky, I shouted, "Your son is not a small-minded man from the Moon clan. What I see through my eyes is more than just you, my mother, weeping for me. It is the sorrow of God and the sorrow of the world. That is why I am here. I am taking this road for the sake of resolving that sorrow." Anybody else would you like to read? Second Jan, somebody?
No, maybe Tara.
Don't think Tara wants. She's probably tired, is she?
No, she can give a testimony.
Yeah.
I think.
Tara,
Yeah.
come on.
I think it's better for me to prepare one for another week, maybe. Maybe full service. I
Okay.
could,
Okay. Then maybe you can read something.
I could read.
Go on, so.
Where do we stop?
You can read anywhere.
The Path of Loving Your Enemy. The Gyeonggi Province Police Department of the Japanese regime, which had jurisdiction over 4 police stations in Seoul and Gyeonggi Province, had a notorious reputation. During the time of father's imprisonment, he was subjected to cruel tortures of various kinds and was beaten to the point where he vomited blood. The detectives demanded that he confess the names of his comrades in the underground independence movement, but ultimately he did not disclose them. Despite the agony racking his body, he kept his commitment and maintained his loyalty to his comrades. Even on the verge of death, he did not pray seeking sympathy from God. Even while he was beaten severely, he forgave his torturers and prayed for them to be blessed. His life in prison at the Gyeonggi Province Police Station until his release in February 1945 was a period of internal preparation, during which True Father communicated with God about future public activities. I was often brought into the police station in shackles for questioning. I was well known at the police station. On the day when I finally entered the prison, word went around, "That Moon fellow is here again." The next day, some Japanese came to greet me, not to show respect, but just to see whether the rumor that I had been imprisoned was true. Even when I was a student, it was common for me to go in and out of the police station. I am a person who possesses a great deal of courage on the torture rack. This was my ongoing history. I was tortured severely by the Japanese police. If you seize young people and tell them that you will torture them with a scorching hot iron, they will say that they did something even if they didn't. Among the tortures I received from the Japanese Imperial Police was men wearing combat boots, kicking me in the stomach. Then 2 men on the left and right grabbed my wrists while 2 other men trampled me. When that was finished, what do you think happened to the skin on my stomach? How painful do you think it was to go to the toilet, to sit down and then stand up? However, I was not discouraged. While they were kicking me, I said, "Hey, this is great." No one in the world talks like that, but I was enduring the pain for the sake of God. Even after that treatment, when I was released, I was very courteous to my torturers and spoke to them kindly as I was leaving. After 5 or 6 hours of continuous torture, when I was about to faint and topple backward, I felt compassion for them. That was my attitude at that time. I sometimes think, I wonder where that person who tortured me is now. Someone who pursues only physical pleasures will never be able to understand my attitude, no matter how much I explain it.
Okay, thanks everyone. Okay, so maybe we'll go into our closing song, Song of the Garden.
garden comes, the spices yield a rich perfume. The lilies grow and die, the lilies grow and die. Refreshing showers of grace divine, from the Father flow to every mind. And make the dead revive, and make the dead revive. Oh, that this dry and barren ground, in springs of water may abound. A fruitful soil become, a fruitful soil become. And as it blossoms as the rose, when the Savior conquers all his foes, and makes his people one, and makes his people one. Oh, brethren, you that love the Lord, and taste the sweetness of his word. In Father's days go on, in Father's ways go on. Our troubles and trials here will only bring us praise to bear. When we arrive at home, when we arrive at home.
Okay, please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day, for gathering us here. Heavenly Father, today we read about how your Father suffered so much during his time in prison. I pray, I want to thank you for this reminder about how your Father was here or is here, and how real he is and was. So I pray that we can remember him and be able to keep you in our hearts all the time. So please be together with everyone throughout this coming week and keep everyone safe and doing well. So I want to have the support here and involve our names and everyone joko de lesson couple and our Aju. Any announcements anyone has? No, it's okay. Okay. Then okay. So I think
Just want to give you a little report of what I've been doing lately, because I find it's quite encouraging, the little activity we have up in Belgium stuff. As you know, we have been attending this Alpha course, and there's a very special family there, the Smith family. So if you when you're praying, remember them. Please pray for them. They have gone through almost the whole course, and the day before now we go to France for the liberation. There's supposed to be some Holy Spirit meeting, and we hear all kinds of rumors about that. And Pat is a little worried that people will crawl around. That's cats and dogs, and you have some things about that. So strange spirits might be coming as well. But last time there was about the topic was, how is God leading you, guiding you? And we were sitting there, and usually I would participate in the talk quite a lot, but this time I thought, you should be quiet and just listen. And people gave different testimonies about how they feel God is guiding them, and quite many good testimonies came up. But the last question that the leader, Linda, that is the daughter, and this is the main person in the activity, she had a question, about the last days and the return of Christ. And Pat looked over to me as we were sitting a little distant from each other, and Pat started to talk about that they might not recognize him. And actually, that developed to be quite a wonderful talk, and we could be very straightforward about, God's preparation for the Messiah to come, what time we are living in, and people actually supported what we were saying so much. I was quite surprised, And then we realized afterwards that most of the people coming to that group is one family, and they are also the ones that have involved us in this onto a political party where we have got in touch with really good people there as well, And we were talking quite a lot about the Messiah's coming and the new age. And afterwards we were talking. Then the father started to talk himself. We were talking in a little group, and he said, the fall of man was a sexual act. And I said, where on earth did you hear that? Yeah, I've been reading about that. He said, And actually, I felt so much support from the group as a whole that if you think, that these Christian groups are just going to be narrow-minded and just reading their own thing, there are so many possibilities there to participate. And we have a knowledge and an experience working with true parents, which they so gladly will receive if it is given to them in a nice way. And I really encourage you, if you find somebody that is dealing with these Bible study groups or whatever, that you go in there, because they have one line that I've heard 100 times. And one thing I understand, Catholics don't read the Bible, So if you have some knowledge, which all of us have about the Bible, you can come with alternatives that we have learned in the principle, and you can come in and you can give them a new understanding, and they will be amazed, Don't think that all Christians are like this. That's basically they're born again. That is a little trouble with that. But it's so many possibilities there to go and talk to people and to try to just move them in that direction. And honestly now, I feel that family is really a John the Baptist family up there to get going with some bigger activities. And even when Pat was kind of mentioning about the blessing event, then even Linda said, yeah, maybe our family should get the blessing, So already they started to suggest that kind of thing. Yesterday, we had a stand at one of these, what do you call it? I wouldn't say cardboard sale, but actually that's what it was. People come with all their stuff to sell, And not many people came. But, I also been working with Men's Shed, and we have been producing a lot of stuff there. And one of the benches that we made was in there for ordering. And a lot of people from the Men's Shed came. And they were very surprised to see what I was doing, because we were sitting there with a full stand, even though we had taken the wrong banner. So we had the UPF banner instead of, the banner that we made. We didn't see that until we pull it up. And here comes the logo of the UPF instead. But actually, that was also another occasion, because then we started to talk to these men, and actually it was one family that came there that's also connected to Men's Shed. And Men's Shed, now we have become a really nice, strong group, of friends that work together. And now they came and they saw what I was doing, and then they were asking questions, and we had a new beginning there again, So, even though the work sometimes seems to take time, if you have a little patience and you start to work and make friends, people will listen, And also in the political party, because there is a reaction now to all this attack on the family, then also if you show them something centered on the family and come up with our conviction about family values and the importance of family and so on, people listen. Because now there is a reaction towards the traditional political parties that are all singing on the same thing, and all want to be quite radical and attack the family, both with abortion and divorce and all these other things that are on the papers now. There is really people there that want to listen to the opposite thing, So please have courage, there is things out to do there, Don't think that you always are rejected when you go, even though now when they do door to door, as we have been doing, Pat is spreading the booklets that we made about the blessing, and they go to every door. And some people are quite happy and receive us. And of course, there's a lot of the opposite as well. But, we have the determination to spread that message to every house in Belgium stuff, and then see what we can do when we have the blessing event. Even if it doesn't come a lot of people, that's the beginning, and we will start there. So please, there is possibility.
Maybe you can explain about that thing in France. It sounded a bit unusual, not the liberation or something. You were saying about something in spiritual, the partnership. I'm not champion. In France, but there was something unusual about it, was there?
No, this is Alpha, you know, Alpha, it's Christian Alpha group, it's all over the world and it's growing. And they're having, the last day of the course that we're doing is on Thursday night, the day before we go to France.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And they do this where the Holy Spirit comes and people get possessed. So they're not possessed, but filled with the Holy Spirit, and they like go prostrate on the floor.
So, okay, weird stuff, yeah. Okay, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just Catholics.
It's all mixed, and the thing about, I read about the Alpha course online, and the born-again Christians are against the Alpha course because the Alpha course is open-minded. So it's a big thing. Some guy gives, what's his name, Nick, somebody's British, isn't he? You get a 20-minute video, and he gives a talk, and you know, like a video.
And then there's gathering groups.
And then there's questions, and then you get in a group and you answer these questions.
Strange name, Alpha course.
Yes,
I thought
Alpha.
Alpha made it, not Alpha.
No, it's just Alpha course. But the thing is, they are open-minded. I didn't realize that's why the born-agains don't actually like them, because they're open-minded. They're trying to bring unity, so you get Catholics and Christians together.
Okay, yeah.
So they are a
They
little
might
bit
be
more.
prepared so well.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I don't speak too soon because they obviously not clicked. We say Unification Church, but they don't.
Yeah.
Something's not clicked.
They don't
It's
know.
movies.
Yeah, but I don't even think when I hear that, that there will be any problem, I really, that's why I say, please pray for this, especially this family that is in charge. Because they really can do a lot of good things.
This family, are they in this as well?
Their son died. Yeah, that is the Alpha.
Oh, that's the
where we
Alpha,
met
okay,
them. And their son died with a car accident when he was 21 or something. And I think that they had to go through a lot. The father, Tony, is always very, and his daughter, so.
That changed their lives, and they became quite committed to
Because they had
religious
to
life.
really make a decision, like, do they still believe in God, why this God let this happen?
Yeah,
So, that sort of thing. Because
We feel there's an indemnity paid for them to do something, to become a special family.
I think he was their only son because they got two girls.
Yeah.
And is he a minister or anything?
No.
How come he's so central to the whole thing there?